All right, Vivian, we're ready to start anytime you are. In five, four, three, two.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Vivian, and before we start, I'd like to just go over some ground rules. Please mute your phones, your laptops, and your background. And if you have any questions, please ask them in the chat, and Tito Terry will be the one to call on you to ask your question, or he'll ask the question for you. We hope that you gained some knowledge tonight on self care and hopefully share this information with some friends and loved ones. Now, on to Reggie.
Hey, greetings and salutations, everyone, and welcome to the first podcast for the Stakeholder Engagement Committee from the GPAC, which is the Georgia Prevention and Care Council for Georgia for HIV. And that modest lady, the beautiful lady that you just saw, is our fearless leader, Vivian Momar. And we want to thank her for all that she does to make it possible for us to serve you in the best possible way that we can. And we come from a diverse all across of Georgia, from many different organizations and different affiliations. We represent you in every way that we possibly can as it pertains to getting services and care around HIV for families and for people in need. And so we meet on a regular basis quarterly, but we also meet as committees on a monthly basis. And we do so just to make sure that we're giving you the best information. And we came up with this idea that maybe, especially during these times, people are really dealing with the issue of mental health. And we need to be able to speak to those issues. And we've got people that we talk to all the time that have resources and information regarding mental health and everything else around HIV. There were so many different topics that we could have chosen, but we chose mental health because of the situation. We want to stay in context. And so we're blessed today to have some fabulous people from our state that have been serving you fearlessly and most efficaciously and beautifully, I might add. And they're all here lined up, waiting to give you some information. So we're going to do that now. Let me introduce you to Christina Dees. She is from the state of Florida. I know that she also has a master's in what is your master's in, Christina?
Mental health counseling.
And you've been serving in the state of Georgia for over 19 years now in many different capacities. Tell me a little bit about what you've been doing in Georgia.
My background in Georgia, I moved to Georgia in 2002. I had a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Florida State. So I moved here, started working for Department of Family and Children Services with the state of Georgia. I've worked in Peach County, worked in Bibb County for about 12 years as a child protective services case manager. I left Bibb County and I went into the corrections system. I started out at in Macon at Central State Prison as a mental health counselor. Now I work for the Department of Corrections Office of Health Services as a pre-release planning coordinator. I work in multiple capacities. I do crisis intervention, crisis assessments for the hospital. I've worked in on-call status in the community, responding to crisis situations and everything like that. So I have quite a bit of history in this area.
Wow, I'd say so. And you're meeting people at every stage of life, the youth, and then when they fall off, they're going into incarceration and you're seeing them there. And you're dealing with the crisis. Maybe we should have more people that are doing what you're doing instead of the police, because they're not handling things. They're not handling it. You're creating a lot more stress. So tell me, what have you been seeing as it pertains to stress or to all of that's been going on now? What's going on with you and how are you finding it out in the field, treating people?
Well, of course, with the current pandemic, dealing with COVID-19, we've seen definitely an escalation in the area of mental health. And the thing that I must say is, because people deal with mental health, it doesn't mean that something is wrong with them. That's one of the things I tell my patients and my customers all the time. What you're dealing with is not abnormal. sometimes it's situational based on where we are, the environment that we're in and what's going on around us. And so it's sometimes normal to respond to stress, feeling overwhelmed the way that we do. We know that grief is raging right now because a lot of people lost a lot of their loved ones during, this COVID pandemic. I've lost loved ones. Depression is high, anxiety is high, trauma is high. A lot of times people don't really view trauma as it is, but if you've been close to someone or someone that you really love, has passed, or you've dealt with the loss of your income, the loss of stability, any of those things can create trauma in your life, and it's very important that we address those things and we recognize them, but at the same time, not make people feel bad because of what they're experiencing.
Absolutely. I know I'm traumatized from a number of different things, just being diagnosed HIV and going through that pandemic, the drug pandemic, and now of the fear of COVID and losing people, and not to mention the social climate with police killings and things of that nature. So it's a lot going on, and I'm thanking you for addressing the trauma in the way that you do. And how are you handling it personally?
I'm handling it very well. I found in the beginning here's the thing. In the beginning, it was like, oh, okay, COVID is here. I can't go to work. So the minute I got to work from home, I don't have to go, out to these facilities. Yay, I get a break, but being at home for months, not being able to go out, then that started to change. Oh, wow, I miss my social interaction. I miss going out to dinner. I miss, my family. Even though I did, make it a habit to go check on my family once a month, we still couldn't gather the way, that we used to. Our family is very, very close. So I was only able to see, my mom, my dad, not my extended family, in a sense. So as time continued and you're in the home and you're not able to get out like you're used to getting out, then it goes like, oh, I was excited in the beginning that I can work from home, but now it's like I'm missing an element of it. I lost some loved ones, very close loved ones during COVID. I lost my grandmother. I lost one of my very close uncles. And then I watched people that were close to me lose people, so trying to be there for them. But I found out that, even as a therapist, you have to know what calms you. You have to know what causes you to be settled. What makes me smile? What has made me smile before? And sometimes the things that made you smile before make you sad now. So I had to filter through to find those things. Well, yeah, this still makes me smile. And so I had to channel my positive energy in those areas. I launched out on something that I didn't know how it was going to go, but it's going very well, and it's extremely therapeutic. And so just trial and error. Sometimes we just have to maneuver our way through, pull back the leaves and the bushes until we find that thing that kind of keeps us balanced.
Absolutely. And I want to say my condolences for your losses. I definitely can identify, not always to COVID, but I lost my mother during the COVID. And so even people that lost their loved ones during COVID had to deal with funerals and dealing with the loss in a completely different way than what we're used to.
And think about this too, Reggie. Some of those people weren't even able to bury their loved ones. There were some people who couldn't visit their loved ones in the hospital, so that of grief, no closure, things like that. So it's been rough.
Yes. So, and I'm glad that you spoke to the solutions, because we are going to talk about the solutions, and the solutions to the extent of what can we do. Because personally, I'm chose to do a little therapy. I actually reached out to Positive Impact, and I'm using their therapeutic services, as well as I was able to receive some bereavement counseling from my mother being in hospice. And so I would suggest those two things to anyone that is, just questioning whether or not you're dealing with trauma or not. I can pretty much tell you that you probably are, and I'm learning a lot as a result. And hopefully you too will learn something this evening I'm sure that you just learned something from Christina. And Christina, we have some other folks here that are going to put us on game as well. So maybe you might want to introduce one or two of them.
Okay, absolutely, Reggie. We have some two valuable guests who have just experience in this area of mental health. They've been serving the community in various capacities. So first, we have Ms. Shavonda Dykes. She is the founder and director of Surviving Transitions, LLC. She is also a licensed professional counselor in the state of Georgia and a national certified counselor through the National Board of Certified Counselors. Additionally, Ms. Dykes is a certified clinical trauma professional. She has a Master Addictions Counseling certification. She's certified in anger management. She is a certified professional clinical supervisor. She obtained an undergraduate degree in management from National Louis University, a graduate degree in community counseling from Argosy University, formerly known as the Georgia Professional School of Psychology. She previously served as the clinical director for CORE Agency. She's been a lead therapist, case manager, and a community support staff person. And she opened her own private practice, and now she's working collaboratively with Miss Heather Conyers of Healing Hearts Counseling Center in Douglasville. She has worked additionally in outpatient and inpatient settings. So a wealth of knowledge we have with Ms. Dykes here with us. And then we also have Ms. Star Golden. Ms. Golden she obtained her Bachelor of Social Work degree from Fort Valley State University in 2003. She received a Master's of Arts in Counseling in 2009 from Argosy University as well. She is a licensed professional counselor. She's a clinical supervisor. She's worked in numerous areas, including foster care, child protection, community-based treatment, crisis intervention, and she's currently working with the military population at Robins Air Force Base. She has over 20 years of experience in human services. She loves advocating for the truth, even when it's hard. And her therapeutic model is Gestalt. She believes because that pushes personal responsibility and freedom. So those will be our guests this evening. So as the conversation goes on, we want, those of you who are on, those of you who are watching, feel free to put your questions in the chat, and then let's just talk about it.
Sounds like a plan. Sounds like a plan. And we have the rest of our committee standing by to help facilitate the questions. And that's Asante, Tito, Brandon, and the illustrious Stephen.
Hello.
Want to say hello to everybody and show your face. Show your face. Come on, show your face. And we have a lot of fun, but we laugh and we joke, but we don't play. And so we're here to talk a little bit about some of the healing solutions. And so Ms. Dykes, Ms. Golden, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
It's really important that we deal with the trauma that we're experiencing now. And we want to put out as much information about healing resources for the HIV community and their families. What say you? What say you, Ms. Dykes? How have you been working in the community and what are you seeing out there right now?
I have been working in the community by providing countless hours of telehealth and working from home, no longer being at the office. I have seen an increase in suicide rates. I've seen an increase in anxiety along with depression, like Ms. Dees pointed out earlier. And just within the last 9 to 12 months, I've seen more need for services, not necessarily crisis intervention, but I just need to talk.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on, and you can see it. Where I see it most when I do get out is on the road. The way people drive, is exceptionally bad. I know Atlanta's famous for crazy driving, but you kind of see people's mental health on the road. So, Ms. Golden, tell us a little bit about what you've been seeing and how you're dealing with it.
So what I have actually two jobs, so I'm probably a part of the problem, but I love both of my jobs. So my primary job and where I was working with Miss Christina is I'm a supervisor over the mobile crisis teams. And so they are the teams that we never stop going in the streets. Even during the pandemic, we had teams that would go out to assess people who are going through a mental health crisis. So, anywhere in the state of Georgia, there's a 1-800 number that you can call. And if you're going through a mental health crisis of any kind, you can call that 1-800 number and teams will come out and assess you, get you connected to services. Actually, it's going to be switching over to 988 pretty soon, but right now it's a 1-800 number.
That's 1-800 what? So I'm going to put that in the
Oh,
chat.
I'm sorry, 1-800-715-4225. And you'll get licensed professionals on the phone. And once they assess the need, if they see that there's a need for a team to come out, then they will send the team out to you. And so we never stopped 365. We were able to do some telehealth services, but we still have been in the streets going out to see people covered in our PPE. My other job also, we do some telehealth. I'm a military family counselor on base, and we've still been doing the face-to-face services. And we have seen an increase in both jobs and really in the community in general, an increase in homelessness, an increase in severe persistent mental illness, people being just stressed out, like Ms. Dykes was saying, people that just need somebody to talk to because they have been kind of isolated in their homes, not able to get out, not able to socialize. People have experienced a lot of death. And from that, we have a lot of trauma, a lot of anxiety issues, people having anxiety that never had anxiety before.
Yes.
And so you're dealing with a lot more anxiety, a lot more depression, people having to take more medication than they've had to take before, just based off of plain fear, because I think a lot of people are still afraid.
Yes.
I mean, I know we're over a year in, but I think there's still so many questions about the pandemic. There's still so many questions about the illness.
Yeah.
And then there are people that are getting vaccinated, but there are even still questions about the vaccination, because what just happened with the Johnson & Johnson, right? And so I think fear is a very paralyzing thing for people. And so for me, how I cope, and she had mentioned I do Gestalt therapy. That's what I live by. That's what I do with clients. And what it focuses on is personal responsibility and freedom. And if you use the principles, you really do, you learn to pay attention to your life. It's almost, I won't say, loosely like almost very existential in a way, because it makes you pay attention to how you breathe. It makes you slow your life down a little bit and pay attention.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, that's what we have to do. We got to learn to slow down. And I'm probably the worst. As I told you, I have 2 full-time jobs, but I really do try to slow down and pay attention to other things so that I don't lose my own health in the midst, because nobody is immune, right? Everybody,
right.
Even those of us who work in the fields, we actually end up with vicarious trauma ourselves because we're doing the work and we're out there. Am I seeing people who have to deal with newly diagnosed issues? Oh, I missed that question. But yes, like I said, there are people who never had mental health issues before, or at least they didn't know they had it. So for all we know, they didn't have it. But because of the pandemic, because of everything, people aren't going to the doctor. I know I haven't been to the doctor. And I'm not even actually afraid of COVID. I'll change that. I'm not afraid of catching COVID as people are like, they're afraid, like super afraid, like don't touch me, don't breathe on me. What I'm more afraid of, and what actually increased my own anxiety, because I deal with anxiety myself, what increased my anxiety and even where it took me not going to the doctor was because I didn't want COVID to be written down. I didn't want to come in with a cold. And next thing you know, I've got COVID, because I started to see people being placed on house arrest if they wouldn't quarantine.
Right.
People being arrested, their rights being taken away for, and that for me was what increased my fear. So it was like, I ended up with like a double ear infection in April of last year.
Wow.
And the doctor asked me, she said, "Why did you wait so long?" I mean, I tried everything I could at home to keep from going to the doctor. And she said, "Why didn't you go to the doctor? It had to hurt." I said, "It did, but I didn't want to come in here knowing all I have is an ear infection. But you say I have COVID. Now I've got to take 2 weeks off of work that I don't have leave for." think about it. I mean,
Yeah, think
and
much
then
about it.
I have, and then if I don't quarantine, as if that was going to help, but if I don't quarantine, I risk the police coming to my house and putting an ankle monitor on me. That was a big deal for me.
Wow.
So that is what increased my anxiety, not as much the disease itself, but the societal consequences that came out of it and the loss of our rights. And it's still going on.
It is still going on.
It is. And Reggie, let me clarify. I know Ms. Golden gave the number for the 1-800 number.
Yes.
And I put it in the chat as GCAL, but let me tell you exactly what that is. That's a Georgia Crisis and Access Line. So we call it GCAL, but it stands for the Georgia Crisis and
Oh
Access.
yeah, we do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I'm glad that you said that because I wondered
As
what GCAL stood for. I didn't know.
We're so used to saying stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yo, the
We're bad.
acronym ladies. But you know,
Yeah.
y'all are heroes, so y'all can do that. You can do that.
Hey, there are a lot of heroes. Oh man, you
Yeah.
are. I mean, you're doing this work here. You're getting the word out. So you're a hero
So,
too.
you know, I thank you very much. But I tell you what, listening to what you all are doing, sometimes I feel a little inadequate. I feel like I could be doing more. But I'm glad you brought up about the anxiety because I was out trying to work with my stress. So I'm working on my golf game. So I went to go get some golf lessons and I had to go over to the mall. But when I went into the mall to get something to eat afterwards, I felt anxiety because there was too many people in there. And so there's just so much going on. So Ms. Dykes, so you told us about what you're doing in the community, and I'm glad that you mentioned a lot about what you're dealing with personally, Ms. Golden. Before we ask some questions of our committee and other folks that are here, maybe you can tell us a little bit, who are mothers in here? Are there any mothers? Are there any caretakers, people that are caretaking the parents,
On that too.
grandparents, significant others that you're concerned about that maybe, you know, how are we supposed to deal with all of that? I mean, what can we do in a positive fashion to maintain our mental health? Because we are here to discuss self-care. Let's talk about some of the healing solutions around self-care. So Ms. Dykes, please lead us in that regard. Help me.
Sure. I think the biggest thing, even in our roles as individuals, caretakers, Uber, taxi drivers, we have to remember to take care of ourselves. A lot of people hear self-care and they think, this is optional. When it really isn't optional, it's mandatory, it's imperative. Think about this. If you get a car or you have a car and you don't get the oil change for 3 years, what do you think that would look like?
You won't have a car.
Yeah, because the sludge, the buildup, all of these things that are actually in there, it's like, ugh. But if you're not taking care of it, you're likely to be the person sitting on side of the road calling hero. You're likely to be the person having your car towed. You're likely to be the person who comes out and the car won't start because there is no maintenance. So in lieu of self-care, I will say self-maintenance. A lot of people say, well, self-care is hard, it costs money. Self-maintenance, same thing. It can be something as simple as praying, going outside with nature, lighting candles, baking, journaling, even down to cleaning. Some people find cleaning to be extremely therapeutic. And if we're going to care for someone else, it's simply put, we can't care for them if we're neglecting ourselves. And I'm going to be very transparent because I'm an advocate for mental wellness.
Yes.
Every good therapist has a therapist. So I have a therapist.
Right.
And I disclose that freely because I don't want anybody to think, oh man, Ms. Dykes looks like she got it all together. She has to be perfect. Ms. Dykes is a person who has everyday challenges, just like everyone else. The only difference between me and the other person is I went to grad school and this is my passion.
Well, see, that was one of the things that kind of threw me off because, and what I found out was the difference between suppressed feelings and repressed feelings, because my fear is that my coping mechanisms had gotten so proficient that I was not even allowing myself to actually feel. I was having a hard time identifying.
Wow.
So
That's a trauma reaction. You know that, right?
This is what I'm
Automatically.
You
learning.
know, that's a trauma reaction. And
Um,
I say that because I do the same thing. When I get really stressed, the tip top of my stress, I go numb.
Automatically.
I used to work at a job that I hated. I know a lot of us have had several jobs we've hated, but this one, I mean, I hated these people like with a passion. And what I would do was I would go in and numb myself at the beginning of every day so that I didn't feel, because that's the only way I survived it. And I didn't even notice what I was doing until one day I got off work and I went to do like they did a ministry. The church that I used to go to would go to the YDC and minister to the girls. And I love that work. Like, I'm very passionate. I love it. Well, I was there and I was like, why don't I feel anything? And I usually feel something.
right.
And I had to remind myself, oh, darn, Star, you got to click that button back on because you just turned all your emotions off all day. And I had to realize how I automatically, when I get stressed, I will turn all my emotions off. And it's good as a survival mechanism, but we got to remember to turn it back on.
Yeah, you know, but that's if you've ever. So a long time ago, I started hiding my buttons because I found people I felt manipulate me in different ways, and so I started hiding the buttons, and I hid them for myself. So now it's really about peeling back the onion. The layers just peeling off, and I can feel that they're peeling off because I can be watching a movie now, and I get something in my eye. I don't cry, but I just get a little something in my eye.
Sounds like tears to me, sir.
I know that's what it sounds like.
Right.
And actually, I would love to have a good cleansing cry. That would be a wonderful thing. But I can't force it, and I'm sure that it will come all in time. One of the things that touches me most is that my mother left me her cat. Well, she left the cat, and we just chose to bring the cat home. And I never had a pet, never wanted a pet, but I'm in love with the cat. I would suggest, that's one of the things, I guess, that's healing for me. And I see one of the questions, and I just want to mention we're at the halfway point of our session here. I just want to remind everyone that we are the Stakeholder Engagement Committee for GPAC, the Georgia Prevention and Care Council for HIV, and we share healing resources and linkage to care for those people who are dealing with HIV and your families here in Georgia. And so we decided that we would do these podcasts quarterly. And this particular podcast, the name of the podcast is What's at Stake? Because we're the Stakeholder Committee, and thank you very much, Stephen, because there's so many different things at stake, most importantly, our own wellness. And so we want to make sure that the healers need healing too, but so as we heal and we remain transparent, we want to draw you in, and hopefully we can, because we meet in we're not a small group, but we meet together and we share it with each other, and then people go out and serve. But it would be so great. Now, the one blessing from the pandemic is that more people are technologically astute. At least you know how to find Zoom now. And so we should take advantage of this technology while we still have it. Because I hear you, Star, you probably a little bit of, you got a little of that theory. I don't want to call it conspiracy, but it could all break down at any given moment. Let's use it to the best of our ability while we can. And we're grateful to have Christina Dees, Shavonda Dykes, and Star Golden here with us tonight. Our fearless leader, Vivian Moma, is our co-host. And I want to bring in Stephen, Tito, Brandon, Asante, and Tashana and find out exactly what's going on with you all. Because I know you're working in the field. I know you're also dealing with trauma and stress like the rest of us. What's going on with you guys?
Reggie, but before you bring them in, can I put a little snippet in real quick?
Absolutely.
I know the focus, and we want to stay, focused on what the topic that we have tonight. And I know our topic is dealing with self-care, and I think Ms. Dykes may have hit on it. But a lot of people, when they think about, and this is I tell my patients and everything, and sometimes people look at me strange, but self-care is so very important. Someone put in the chat, how can you pour out an empty cup? So I tell them, if I don't take care of me, then I won't be around to take care of others. And
Yeah.
so self-care is so important that it requires us, and some people are not going to understand this, it requires us to be selfish. And a lot of times people hear the word selfish and they see that as a negative tone. Well, how are you going to be selfish? Well, I have to be selfish enough to know that I need to take care of myself. Right. And this is what the conversation is about. This is what the discussion is about. Many times people don't know the signs and the symptoms to say, hey, I need to sit down and take care of myself, because people run and they go, and I have to do this for that person, I have to do that for this person, I have to be a mother, I have to be a sister, I have to be a wife, I have to be an employee, you know, everything to everybody, but what am I to myself? And so many times we've got to, and I think Ms. Golden said, we've got to slow down and know how to process, know how to recognize when we haven't been taking care of ourselves, because most people's self-care is not a part of their regular routine.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? A lot of people don't engage in that until something happens. They get sick, they get worn out, they're tired, and then they're in bed or home or in the hospital. And, you know, there's no choice but to, you know, other people at that point are taking care of you. But if we can learn how to incorporate self-care in our regular routine and our daily routine, then we will be not only much better people for others, but we will be better for ourselves. And the better we are, the more we can give. I can be my best me to everybody else when I'm good to me, if that makes sense.
Makes sense.
So understanding that self-care is not just something I do occasionally. No, it's a part of my routine. I get up every morning, whatever my daily routine is, I wash my face, brush my teeth, take a shower, I engage in self-care. You know, at some point in the morning, during the day, that's what's going to keep us up, moving, motivated, and that's what's going to keep the positivity hanging over our lives, so we don't get so buckled down and weighed down with the thing, because things are gonna go on in life. That's the thing. Life goes on. Life is always not gonna bring us the positive. So we have to bring the positive to a negative circumstance that might be going on around us. So being able to recognize there are times when we just don't feel like ourselves. Why don't I feel like myself today? We have to sit down and take an assessment of what's going on around us. What am I doing today that I didn't do yesterday? What's different about my mood today that wasn't there yesterday? What has taken place this week that wasn't there last week? What gains have I made, and what losses have I lost? We have to take an assessment of all of those things and understand, okay, now it's time. I must take care of myself.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Vivian just put a comment that was awesome in there. And it was really good. I was like, it's really not a luxury. Self-care is a necessity. Like Ms. Dyke said, you absolutely must. And if you don't, I promise you, you will, because if it doesn't kill you, you'll end up in the hospital. I mean, that's how serious a lack of self-care is. It can kill you. Yes. One of the most important pieces of self-care that I had to learn, and I don't know how white families do it. Like I tell people when I'm talking, I don't know how white families do it, but Black families don't give children the option to say no. How often can you tell your mother, I'm not doing that, or no? That might kill you at a Black family anyway. But learning
I still have my teeth, so you know I didn't.
I know, right? I'm still alive, so I never told my mama no. But when we become adults and in charge of our self-care, and really even with our children, exactly, I wouldn't be here if I told my mama. So we had to learn. I had to learn how to say no. And I'm not saying I don't feel bad, because sometimes I do feel a little bad when I say no, but saying no and sticking to it and it being a complete sentence. No is a complete sentence. I don't owe you an explanation for why I'm not doing that. No, you cannot call me an hour before an event and expect me to show up. I don't care how many family members are going to be there. Right. Saying you have to give me proper notice so that I can be ready. So just being able to speak up for yourself and stand up for yourself, knowing when to say yes, and sometimes saying yes so you can get out of the house and doing things. But yes, boundaries, having those boundaries and saying absolutely not. I'm not doing that. Today my activities are actually to do nothing, and nothing is self-care. I'm not doing anything today. That doesn't mean interrupt my day. I am not doing anything today. And that's probably been to me, the most important piece of my self-care is just being able to say, no, I'm not doing some things.
One of the most important things I've done for self-care over the years, because I've seen the what would happen if I didn't, is I changed the way that I eat. Okay, now I don't want to step on any
Oh,
toes.
you stepping on my toes. Let me mute my
Move your feet out the way. Move your feet. Just move your feet. Move your feet. Well, you know, and I don't like wearing it on my sleeve, because long-term survivors, you know, we've told the story so many times. I don't want to wear it on my sleeve, but I got diagnosed in 1988, contracted in 84, almost died in 2005. But I had stopped eating meat before that. You know, I just became a vegan, and before it was fashionable, before there was a slutty vegan, before there was all these, you know, and I'm grateful that they are.
You were the slutty vegan, huh? Look,
I won't stand on the line. You know, I won't stand on the line. I'm old school. I've been around too long. Y'all new jacks get on the line. But what I have done is I've started to take a course in plant-based food preparation, and I've been hooking up some really nice things, and I'm learning some really nice skills, and that is also not only self-care, but it's I find it, you know, keeping my mind busy is not always avoidance. It's like you said, there's got to be a balance. Now I learned about avoidance too. I know that that's a coping mechanism for the traumatized. So I'm glad that we're having this discussion, because we're really getting some things out. We're talking about boundaries, talking about making lifestyle changes. We're talking about making sure that we take care of ourselves, and that healers need healing too. And I've seen some really nice things in the chat. Tito was talking about having a good cry, and I really can identify with that. I'd love to have a good cry. Tito.
so what's keeping you from having this good cry?
Right.
I'm concerned. You know, I'm like, he keeps saying this.
No, but
I literally cried watching New Amsterdam today. I don't know what
repressed feelings. Repressed feelings are what's keeping me from. It's just I cope well. I live in the moment, and so I deal with things as they come along. And I'm just I am concerned that there's the residual effect of all of the trauma that's going by. You know, from way back in '78 when my father got killed to '88 getting diagnosed. You know, just the heroin. You know, the heroin. Just there's so much that has happened.
So what does your therapist say?
So that's what we are working on now. First of all, I'm a hard nut to crack. First thing I had to do was submit. Because you know,
being honest.
Yeah, because you know, I know that we're all human beings, and so you know, I'm pretty strategic. I'm pretty tactical, and I've spent my whole life of hiding the buttons. So now I just have to find the buttons. I think too much, and so you know, I'm looking a few steps ahead, and I just, you know, I come from the South Side of Jamaica, Queens, in New York City. I am not used to, you know, surrendering or being a Vic.
Look, you on this call with all these clinicians, you know where all our brains are going, like, ooh, I could work with him.
Well, please, I'm glad to hear that, because I'm checking for your number, because well, girls getting ready to dip.
I'm the therapy whisperer. Most people cry in my sessions, even when they don't plan to. It's like, they're like, I'm sorry.
Well, see, that's the issue, you know. If I think that she knows that as well, and she's kind of trying to pull it out of me, but you know, I want to submit, but I can tell that she's trying to pull it out of me. So it's like, it's a little cat and mouse thing. But enough about me. Let's get with Steven and Tito. Tito, tell me how to cry, Tito. Oh, don't get me started, because you know, Tito, pass me some tissue, Tito.
Well, no, as I said in the chat box, you know, find something that, as we all know, music, it touches that emotional spot within us. Yes. So find something that, you know, brings you to that point, you know, that makes you that emotional person, and then, you know, play it. And then that's a good way to try to facilitate, to try to get it going that way. So.
Okay. Thank you.
But there was one I wanted to bring up with the chat box here real quick, to go to what we were just talking about. Miss Vivian brought a good question. You know, we talk about, you know, dealing with things, you just mentioned all that. And she asked, how can we identify when our coping mechanisms are not working for us anymore? You know, and this goes back to what we were just the conversation you were just having now with our guest.
Yes. That's the same question that my therapist keeps asking me. Is it working for you? Is it working for you? And I'm like, yeah, it's working for me. She said, but is it really?
Is it really working?
Right,
And
right.
the way to identify whether it's working or not, and Ms. Dykes and Ms. Golden, you can jump in. Do a comparison. You got to compare. Where was I before I started attempting to cope with this situation using these mechanisms? Where am I now that I began using these mechanisms and skills? And if you don't see a change, and I'm not talking about immediate change, because sometimes it takes us a while to adapt to the new skills that we've learned and the coping mechanisms that we've learned. So sometimes it takes us time to learn how to apply them correctly. So initially you may not see a change, but if I've been applying these mechanisms, for a while, a month, 2 months, 3 months, and I'm still in the same situation, like I don't see a change, I don't feel a change. I'm looking and I'm still reacting the same way. My behavior is still the same, because behavior is what we observe. Behavior, when we're talking about mental health, how do you know something's going on? It's behavior. Behavior is story. That's how, when we do assessments, we assess the behavior. What's the pattern? So you look at your pattern prior to using those coping mechanisms and skills, and then you look at your behavior patterns after you've implemented those, and you make a comparison. Where am I now? And if you're still in the same place, exhibiting the same patterns, exhibiting the same behaviors, then that particular skill or mechanism may not be working for you. And so, okay, what else there? Because there are many interventions, many coping skills, coping mechanisms. We just have to find what works for us. And I was listening to Reggie say, his mom passed and she left behind the cat. I don't know if Reggie knew this. I'm pretty sure he does, because he's a very well knowledge. He educates himself all the time. But animals can be very therapeutic. Yeah. There are animals that are trained therapy animals. One of my church members, she has I guess she deals with some things, but she has a therapy dog. I've known people to have like the little hamsters or the gerbers, or these animals are soothing, and they help those people that they're with maintain good mental health, maintain emotional stability. Some people, like Tito was saying, music can be very therapeutic. That is one of my things. It's something I play something when I'm mad. I play something when I'm sad. I play something different when I'm happy.
What do you play when you're mad? What do you play when you're mad?
Knock if you buck, girl.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So we have to tap in to, and people look at, I think, therapy and therapeutics as something that we have to put money into, or I don't really have the money to pay a therapist. I don't really have the time. I don't know, but little do they know, it's the daily, day-to-day things that are right in front of us that can be so therapeutic. For me, I was going to the spa on a regular until COVID. I ain't had a good massage in I don't know how long.
Right.
But I always took a good soothing bath. Anytime I felt stressed, I would run a hot bath. I have candles lit. So guess what? I can't go to the spa. So I just take a little, I light my candles every time I go to the bathroom, to get ready to take a shower. I do it whether I take a shower, whether I'm taking a bath. And it's just something about that candle burning in the midst of the darkness. It brings light to that. Something about soothes me. And so it's the things that we probably never even thought about. But how do you feel when this is going on? You know what? I don't feel stressed when I'm doing this, or I don't feel uptight. I don't feel overwhelmed when I'm in, this environment. Or, well, guess what? You just found something that's therapeutic for you.
Yeah. Well, this is therapeutic for me. I really enjoy facilitating these kinds of conversations and getting information for myself and sharing it with others. And so I've been waiting for people to come to this type of platform for a long time, because I can do it from the crib, and so that I don't have to run around, and I don't want to do a whole bunch of that. But the question, what's at stake, is so prolific, and it is definitely not rhetorical. So our lives are at stake. And what we're talking about are these healing solutions and so many different things that we can do. Stephen. Stephen, what do you do to deal with stress? I know that you're in a pretty high profile position. Tell us a little bit about what you do and how you deal with stress. And also let me know, is that a virtual background or is that your crib, man? That is nice.
I wish that was my house. That's virtual, and that's part of my self-care is creating a good space for myself, even if it's only in my head. Something that this conversation brought up for me, and I put it in the comments earlier, was I've had to find new ways of self-care during this pandemic because, and it may sound silly, but my self-care was always, I went to the movies probably like twice a week. And it was I'm a very extroverted person. And it was a time that like I could be in the dark with nobody else. I could have my phone off and nobody was bothering me. And being in the pandemic and not being able to go to the movie theater has been so, I know that sounds crazy, but that's been
No,
so
it's not.
hard for me.
Not at all.
So I've had to find other healthy ways, to deal with that. And I guess in some ways it's been good because I found that like going out and taking a walk can be as effective, and I get the benefit of good exercise. So I think that's something that a lot of people have probably struggled with is, self-care if you can't access what your standard self-care is. But I also just wanted to real quick say that we've talked a lot about the pandemic, but I also feel like a lot of people, their self-care has been affected by the recent political climate and going through the election season.
Please. Yeah.
And for me, I have had to come to terms with that self-care for me is and can be and should be who I surround myself with. And that I have a decision that if we are in disagreement and I feel like you are a toxic person in my life, even if you're family, I don't have to see you.
Amen.
And
Amen.
I can love you from afar. And it doesn't mean that I love you any less, but I also just don't have to be around you. I don't have to engage with you on that level. And so I think for me, I've had to learn a lot about that level of engagement that we give people. That is something that we control. And that's something that we should control. But a lot of times we give that control up. We give that power up.
Way too often.
Reclaiming that can be self-care.
So we're gonna put Stephen down for Netflix and chill. And, and get
Yeah.
your box to the left. Get your box.
But Stephen made a really, really good point, and I was trying to read them as they were coming across, saying that we mistake being comfortable with effective.
Yeah.
And that is woo. If that's not a whole sermon, I was like, ooh, I'm preaching, you preaching over that, right? Because we think because we feel good about something that means that it's what it's supposed to be in our lives, when sometimes the thing that really is going to make the best impact on our life is that thing that hurts us the deepest, that hurts, that like, ouch, like step on my toes, hurt me, like I got to change, I got to make some real changes here. And like you were saying, Stephen, about removing people, I started back it was actually January of 2019. So I was a year before the pandemic. So it wasn't even the pandemic, of removing people who were not returning the same thing that I was giving. I hate that it took that long, but I had one best friend and I would always go visit him. And it didn't matter where I lived, I would go to him. But even when I lived 8 minutes away, he wouldn't come visit me. And I was like, wait a minute, this is, and it took that long for me to finally say, either you return what I'm giving out, or I've got to let you go on and find something that's going to give back. And that was hard. I mean, that was it wasn't comfortable at all. But I noticed myself start to grow out of that. And growth is usually coming out of people say your comfort zone is where you go to die. Things die in a comfort zone. You got to get out of your comfort zone. And so that's been the biggest part of self-care, but it's been hardest because, man, I've had to lose friendships. I've had to leave jobs. I've had to sacrifice, but I needed to in order to become who I wanted to be.
Yeah, when I typed that, I was also thinking of the fact that, you know, what we call self-care can actually be destructive. So,
Oh yeah.
you know,
Can
whether
be.
it's smoking crack or eating a large pizza by yourself, you know,
Oh wait, get out my
those-
business now. Get out my business. That pizza is
those-
good.
you know, the pulpit's preaching to itself, you know, but those aren't necessarily healthy behaviors. And so
Mhm.
sometimes in self-care, we have to look at like, we're doing that because that's what we've always done. That's what we're comfortable with.
That's
But
what we-
sometimes real self-care is finding something that is a less destructive way to handle our problems, you know, and you know, even if we think that smoking crack or eating a large pizza is good, you'll be surprised when you find out that there's better.
Well, and the reason we think it's good, Stephen, is because it feels good to us. If you
Mhm.
think about an addict, you know, whether it's a drug addict, sex addict, food addict, whatever, how do they become addicted in the first place, right? Because it felt good. And absolutely, instant gratification. It felt good when I
Yeah.
did Y and Z. I felt great, you know, and so
Mhm.
I love that feeling. I want it again. And many times the things that feel good to us, I'm not saying everything that feels good to us, but many times there are so many things that feel good to us that are not good to us. How do we know? And this is how you kind of have to know when to pull yourself out of stuff. It may feel good to me, but it's not good for me. Why? Because of the effects and the impact of
Mhm.
what's the result of what I'm doing.
Absolutely.
Not the feeling, but what's the result? You know,
Mhm.
eating pizza, eating a whole pizza, or eating a whole bucket of fried
Leave my
chicken
pizza alone now. Y'all leave my pizza alone.
on your body, that you're killing yourself. So yeah, it
Right.
it feels good, but health wise, like you said, there are negative effects and impacts of that. Drugs, yes. When I'm doing what I'm doing, it feels good to me. It gives me this instant high, but I'm killing myself. So that many times we need to know, yes, this feels good, but what will be the outcome of it? And that's how
Mhm.
it's been, that's not good for me. And so now we've got to push ourselves in a space. Okay, there are some things that I may not like in a sense that make me uncomfortable. That's when you're growing. That's
Mhm.
how you know you're growing.
Well,
Mhm.
actually, feelings are uncomfortable. And when I was running early on in life, I did choose drugs. And heroin took me to another place. It was the best escape possible. I was on an entirely another planet. It's just that the price of the trip it got to be too expensive, and the consequences were HIV. And so, you know, we're all going through a transformation. We're always transforming. But I really like what you said, Star, about, you know, no pain, no gain, you know, or the comfortability is, and dreams die first too. So
Mhm.
Mhm.
I found myself, you know, I have a dream and I'm working towards that dream, but the dream continues to plateau. And so at what point do I either shift or change and make some adjustments, you know, or I have an attraction, but that attraction is unattainable. And so how do I deal with, you know, with my real life situation the way that it is now and still find ways. And so this is what we're here talking about. I want to thank everybody for joining us. I want to thank especially Beautiful, because you are active in the chat. You are most active in the chat. Tito, what is Beautiful talking about? Hey, Beautiful. What's going on? Open up your mic.
Beautiful.
Hi,
Is,
everyone. I was
Hey,
just
beautiful.
reiterating things that everyone was already talking about. I'm like at my night job, which is not self-care, but it's what I'm doing right now. So that's why I have my mic off, because it's kind of loud here. But yeah, I was just saying, during the pandemic, it really allowed me to separate myself from toxic relationships and to make myself uncomfortable in situations in order to grow as a person, period. And that's one good thing about the pandemic. You see who actually have your back, have your support, and who's actually genuine and real. And it's okay to say goodbye to those things that aren't good for me. So from now on, I was just saying that I'm just going to return all the same energy that I've been receiving from other people. And if it's no energy, then that's fine, because I don't have any time for nobody pulling on my coattails, because, I can't grow just having toxic relationships or things that's negative, or because it's like so many other things that are going on in the world. And, it's just a lot going on. So holding on to things that aren't positive, and if it's not helping me grow as an individual, then I don't have time for it. So that's just basically it. And I was just glad to see everyone's face and smiling.
Too. We really appreciate you being here and being active and getting engaged and getting involved, bringing your feelings.
Thank you. I appreciate the platform, because you never know, I get you get emails, and of course everyone is busy, and you like, oh, I'm gonna try to jump into this, I'm gonna try to jump onto that, and then not knowing that 20 minutes or 30 minutes probably have changed someone's life, or even mine. Like, it just puts you in a whole different mind thought. And if I was feeling down earlier, now I'm feeling better, and I just got rejuvenated and restarted, so I can get through the rest of my night and finish what I have going on. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
You are rejuvenating us as well. Thank you very much for sharing. And I want to thank everybody for sharing. I've gotten a lot out of this conversation. It's not, there's so many groups, support groups. And I think one of the major things that we can do is, and it's something that we have experience in, is in destigmatizing anything. In this case, is destigmatizing therapy.
Yes.
Destigmatizing self-care. It's imperative that we take care of ourselves. I always like to say it's imperative that we participate in our own survival, because if we're not doing that, we're most certainly complicit in our own demise. And so you all are validating that every day. And not only are you doing it for yourselves, but you're out in the world doing it for others. And we want to thank you so much for that. And being a part of GPAC has been a fabulous experience. It's an opportunity for us to reach out into the community and to work with others that are doing the same. And that is why we came up with the idea of doing this podcast. And we hope that you've gotten something out of it. We intend to do it on a quarterly basis, maybe more if you ask for it. This recording will go out, and you can send it out to wherever, and hopefully it will touch others. But we definitely want to thank Lady V, Vivian, for all that she does in leading us, and thank all of you for joining us tonight. The question is, what's at stake? We've been talking about self-care, and we've come up with some pretty good ideas and some pretty good self-awareness tips, and we hope that you've gotten something out of it too. So Vivian, you want to take us home? Thank you, Christina. Thank you.
No problem. No problem.
Thank you, Star.
You're
Reggie,
welcome.
You're
before
welcome.
I want to put another plug in for GCAL. GCAL is a valuable resource, and it is everything. It's 24 hours, 7 days a week, weekends and holidays. They have peer support. If you don't want to call, they have a chat line. And not only do they have all of that, they are able to link you with resources in your community. So GCAL is statewide across the state of Georgia. So they can link you with community resources in whatever area that you're in. So that is awesome. And I really just want to put a plug in for that.
Thank you for doing that. It reminds me that we should let everyone put a plug in for whatever resources that you want to link us to, and put it in the chat as well. Just type something in the chat. Star, are your services available? You want to put your number in the chat? I'll holler at you. Come on.
You can contact me. I work with people individually on a case-by-case basis. I want to see you cry. I now need to see you cry.
You sound like Oprah now. Oh yeah, you're gonna make me cry.
You'll have your aha. You'll have your cleansing moment. You just gotta not fight it. And I think that's learning how to not fight it. That's gonna be a piece of self-care for you, is to not fight your emotions.
Well, that's why I learned the difference between suppression and repression. It is not suppression. It is repressed. And I know what I know. I know what I don't know, but I don't know what I don't know. And so I'm open. So holler at me, I'll holler at you. Vivian, Stephen, Tito, would you all, Shavonda, anybody would you like to share some other resources before we go, so that people will be able to tap into it?
Well, I put in the chat that for any needs, HIV needs, please visit www.georgiacampus.com for any HIV needs from public health.
Okay,
There's links to find HIV testing and HIV linkage to care if you need it.
great. Thank you very much. Stephen, Vivian.
I'd like to say thank you. And then also thank you, Tito, for posting in the group about georgiacampus.com, because it's also one of those resources where you can put in your zip code. And when you put in your zip code, it will let you know what resources are available to you and get you to those, facilities or those agencies. And that I actually had a really, really great time. And I realized that self-care is something that every single person should partake in, regardless if you are a teenager or somebody who is a senior citizen or considered a senior citizen, that there's no specific person that is worthy of self-care and not. We all are. So that was one of the big takeaways, that we're all doing so many things. We have our hands in so many pots. Regardless if we're entrepreneurs or if we're working or if we're mothers or just friends and loved ones, that regardless of the roles that we play, we must always make sure that we're looking out for ourselves first, regardless of what that looks like for each other.
Thank you very much, Vivian. Might I say, looks like you're taking care of yourself pretty well.
I'm trying.
Stephen, thank you for what you put in the chat. Is there something you wanted to share? Shavonda, is there something you'd like to share before we go?
I would just encourage anyone and everyone to take the time to do anything that they've wanted to do for themselves within reason. Even if it's, hey, I want to do Netflix, I want to chill. I know Miss Dees brought up a good point with lighting the candles, you know, taking that environment, turning the bathroom into an oasis or a spa. We don't realize how our neurotransmitters are just released. So we have dopamine, we have all this good stuff going places, but we can do that even if it's going outside and gardening. You know, like for her, she created this oasis. She did the spa. That was cool because that was the replacement for her regular massages. But for other individuals who may not have money to go and do a mani and pedi, you may just get some mouthwash, put it in a bucket with some warm water, and just kind of like do your own feet, do your own mani and pedi, you know, little things. And it doesn't have to take a lot. You don't have to schedule self-care. Self-care can be beautiful when it's spontaneous. You just do it. You don't have to get permission to do self-care. You simply do it.
Thank you. Thank you. You're absolutely right. And I know because of the pandemic, we have definitely had some mitigating circumstances, but we are creative, we are resilient, and we are thriving in the midst of the chaos. And so we will continue to do that together. We intend to come back on a quarterly basis. If there's anything that any of us can do, feel free to reach out to us. Our Facebook page is GPAC, that's GPACC, and we can communicate with you from there and put you in touch with whatever resources you may need, whether you are affected or diagnosed with HIV or not. So with that being said, I want to thank everybody once again for joining us. This has been fabulous. I don't know what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna have to find a way to do some self-care. Thank you, Asante, and the rest of the committee. Reggie, we see all of you here. Thank you for joining us, Brooke. And if you just joined us, we're sorry that you just got here, Chandra, but we're glad that you made it, and the recording will be available for you on the Facebook page forthwith. So until the next time, it's been fun, but we got to run. We'll see you all on the other side of the moon. Until then, peace and blessings.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Thank you so much.